Live. All right. Happy Tuesday, everyone. Thank you so much. And I'm super excited for tonight's episode. We have a special guest, a former Spanish teacher of mine back in high school, which is crazy to believe because it's already been 10 years. Holy smokes, I feel old. But I'm super blessed to have you on. She's a recent author. She was a former teacher. She does yoga now and is a sound healer and a mother of three. And I'm just so blessed to have her. Four. My bad. Four. And just getting to know her and get to hear what her story has been very powerful, and just learning how she's had to overcome so many challenges and just decided to take the leap of faith and share what it means to be a woman and share so much about her story and be vulnerable to the world. It takes a lot of guts. So I'm so excited for tonight's episode. We have Lydia Gascón Samaniego, and welcome to the Legacy Project.
Thank you, Albert, and it's such an honor to be here. I am thrilled. Thank you.
Yeah, you know, when we always do a pre-call, and it was a couple of weeks ago, and when Albert, introduced me to you, like one of the beautiful things that happens in conversations is we go from kind of a structured way of talking, and at the end, through conversation, through comfort, through trust, then sometimes things open up like a flower. And so before we get to the flower part, I just want to thank you for coming on, because it takes a lot of courage, it takes a lot of vulnerability, and it takes massive, just, I would say, self-love to do that. So we really appreciate you coming on the show, because you have a tremendous story. And one of the reasons why Albert and I put this project together, is so that we can hear stories like yours, you know, and we can learn from people like yourself who have gone through hell and back, right? And so on that note, tell us a little bit about your book called To Hell With You, and just in a little synopsis of the premise of your story of what does that mean, and also some of the we'll start from there. Like what's the premise of the book, and how you got to this point.
The premise of the book is that it doesn't mean to say to hell with you. It's not a bad thing. It's literal, meaning I went to hell with this person. So, but the premise is that we set out on this journey. We were young, and with my then husband, and we were searching for the answers to the questions of why are we here on earth, and how do we get the most out of this life. And we set out on this journey, and the journey we set out on was quite peculiar, but nonetheless, and what we found was heartache and destruction. And instead of the answers to the question, but had I stayed there, I would have been very bitter and very jaded for the rest of my life. But I didn't. I kept insisting. I kept feeling in my heart that the answers had to be out there, because why would I ask them? And lo and behold, underneath the pain and the ruin was shining like a brilliant thousands of diamonds. The answers were there on how to live on this planet. And so it's not like it's perfect or anything like that, and that I would keep my sons and I have applied these principles that we found, but it's a never-ending process, and you just get better at refining them and understanding them, because every single one of us goes through heartache and pain, but it's how we react to it that determines how devastated we become, or get jaded, or that we can never come back from the pain. So, and that's the premise of the book. It shows the journey, the fall, and the coming back up, and then the explanation of some of the truths that we found.
I love it. It seems like you've painted a beautiful picture. Can you just share a little bit? And we're going to have some old students come on here, so there's going to be some vulnerability. I know that's part of what we're going to do, right? What we talked about it a little bit in the past, but I kind of want to break just the overall picture and actually dive into like one segment of it. What was that low point that you're discussing underneath that really made you want to share this vulnerable story with yourself? What was really that point in time?
Yeah.
What was the deepest low?
Whatever thing that is holding in your brain right now, what is that picture that you can kind of illuminate to us?
Well, the deepest low is I completely lost everything about me. Everything that I once was, everything I once believed, everything that I, just me. I gave it over to another, and it destroyed me, literally, and very close to death. But it didn't happen that way, so fortunately. And so it took some time. It's not like 1 week later I was all better. It wasn't like even 1 year. It took years because there was so much to process. And I tried to find people to help me, and because no one ever heard of such a thing that I'd went through. Like, well, whatever, And so that was really difficult. So basically I had to do it myself, and with my sons, and make sure that they would heal as well. So it was a lot of work, and that's where I put most of my time and all of my life, was them and me to recover. So because I went so low and did not die, and I'm here now, it's like there's so many things that I just love to share, because we all go through pain, and there is so much pain out there. And so if my journey, my experiences, and my explanation of these truths can help somebody, then this is what it's all about. Because what I went through had to be for other people as well as myself.
Yeah, I love that. So we're going to go a little deeper, okay? Here's what I found. With my troubled past, I grew up in a very violent household, where in terms of the day, you'd call it physical and verbal abuse. Back then, it was just normal, right? Mm-hmm. And so I didn't realize that there was some traits that this chaos that I was involved in my entire life, and I ended up continually finding that chaos in relationships, whether it was being married or having a girlfriend after my marriage, and I kept attracting this certain trait. What was it about this relationship you're referring to that symbolized either a childhood event, either your father, your mother? What is it about this relationship really that you uncovered about yourself that helped you basically awaken? What are those traits?
Well, what that relationship showed me was that this is going to sound weird, but I have always wanted to find this idea of truth ever since I was a little girl. And I thought it was in religion. And so this guy was religious. And so basically I became a one-person cult to this individual. And then, realizing that just my earnest desire to find these answers was then manipulated and twisted, and literally I was brainwashed. And so, that I learned that, but at the same time I was just like refused, like, no, it's not going to destroy me, and I know that those answers are out there. So I don't know if that answers your question, but that's how I want to answer it.
I'll go a little deeper. Okay, so I guess, what was going on in your life that attracted you to this person? Was it something you were running from? Was it something that you felt that you were attracted to about? Was it something that reminded you of your father or your mother that you didn't realize, down the road? What was it about this relationship in particular that got you to where you were not yourself? You lost yourself.
Well, I think he kind of reminded me of my father in some ways, because, I'm Latina, Mexican, and I'm one of the babies of the family. And so my father was very macho and protective and things like that. And I thought that this guy was protective in a good way, but he wasn't, and that what pulled me towards him in the premise of religious hope, that we find these truths. And then the other part was just that something innate inside of me that wanted to find these answers. And maybe it came from religion. I don't know. I think it came from something way deeper, because I even felt it when I was little. It wasn't in the context of religion. It was in just the context of truths to be found, So, yeah.
It's really powerful that you knew at a young age that you wanted to find this truth. See, that's pretty mature for a young person to even think like, oh, I want this sort of truth to be unfolded, and you found this in this person, right? So did you always know that you wanted something like evangelical or like spiritual? So is that something that was part of how you grew up?
Well, I grew up Catholic, and my mother was very, very religious in context of the church, and my dad was very spiritual. His church was outside, and they approached spirituality or religion very differently. And so, yeah, I grew up in a very kind of religious home. We always referenced God. That's what most Catholics do, and Virgin Mary and all that kind of stuff. And but yeah, I've always, I don't know if it was mature, Albert, to be honest. It was just something that was inside of me to want to know more about why we are here.
So I'm curious, I'm just curious about the title, right? To Hell with You, and you're framing the picture of what was going on with him, and eventually you were able to, I'll say, escape. These are my words, not yours. Escape or withdraw, and now you find yourself as a single mom, correct? Just you and the boy.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
That really touches me because my mom was a single mom, but I was a very little boy. Like, what were some of those struggles you faced once you detached from these people, and what were some of the struggles that you had to go through by yourself that you're like, shit, like, maybe I should go back? Did you have any of those thoughts, or what was going through your head at that time?
Well, I couldn't go back.
Okay.
He pretty much made it very clear. He took a pellet gun to his head and blew out his eyes, and so it was, he didn't kill himself. I don't know if he's alive now. I have no idea where he's at, but there was no going back at that point, and that was pretty devastating. But after that, knowing that I was doing this all by myself, the thing that I struggled with most was my own thoughts, my own like beating myself up for being stupid, for failing, for choosing poorly, and all these things. I say now I don't think any of those things anymore, but that's what I sure did. And then that would spin me into like, well, shoot, I'm doing it all by myself, and I don't have a family that I really, really wanted, and this is hard. And my family, they were compassionate too, but they didn't, they helped me out, like with helping me take care of the kids while I worked or something like that, or if we needed to go somewhere, they would help and stuff, but they didn't help me financially, and so they said, go on welfare. I mean, like, that was like a knife in the gut, it's like, wow. It's like, you got to figure it out yourself. I'm like, okay, well, God damn it, I'm going to figure it out myself, and but that in itself pushed me on a ledge, like that I was alone, that nobody would ever help me, and that was hard to get through it, because I took that with me for years, because that's how I did everything. It's got to be me or nobody, because that's what my own family did, and that was a good thing, because it made me fight to get out of that, to stand on my own 2 feet with my boys, because I was not going to shame them by staying on welfare. I wanted to show them that I could get out of it, that we could rise above all this, but it also created a very much of an island thing, and which was not good. And so even now, I can see it, but it's still different. Like I can let go and say, I could use some help, you guys can help, and to let people into my life, which is really difficult. For like 20 years, I could, it was really hard, and it only hurt myself. But, you learn from everything. So in one way, them pushing me to go on welfare, helped me to get myself out of it and know that I could do it and, move forward. But on the other side, it helped put me on an island that anything you do, you got to do it on your own because nobody's going to help you.
Yeah.
So that was not the good, because people do want to help. And, and it makes me cry now when people, they don't see it all the time, but just to think about, like, oh God, you helped me. I was like, oh my God, that's, they don't realize how deep it goes to me, because it's like, to realize that someone wants to help. So, yeah.
Wow. That's powerful, because it's like, it's so easy to really just want to like put your head down. And obviously you have 4 boys too. And I don't know, it sounds like you've been very open with them throughout this process too, from our other discussions and stuff like that. Did they, of course you were a single mother at this time too. How did you manage, just like, besides just making it happen, to still become a mother for your boys as well? Was there something that like you leaned on for support at that time? Did you ever like how did you go about like guiding them as young men as a single mother?
Well, it's funny that you asked that, because when they were born, especially when the first son was born, it was very clear to me the responsibility that fell on my shoulders, and that it was my responsibility to make this little boy, choose and become into a man. And that was all on my shoulders. And then especially when it was just me. And then it was something that was very, very, it made me do everything. It pushed me. Mm-hmm. And honestly, it was an honor and the greatest responsibility. And I was so happy to have that. Mm-hmm. And I just like you said before when we talked in a different conversation, that I didn't know how else to be other than to be honest. They've seen me cry. They've seen me throw things, and, they've seen me just fall, to my knees. And then they've seen me like, I'm sorry, I messed up, and, but we're going to get through this. And, and I think them seeing just me, because they could feel it, children feel the parent and the adults around them. And so when they try to mask it, they're confused, because they feel it in the air or they see it in the aura, but then you're saying something else and they're confused. They're like, oh, okay, so I'm not supposed to be real then, so, but I didn't know how else to be other than to just, okay, well, this is what happened. This is where we're at, and I messed up here. I did this. We're going to try this. We're going to try that. We're going to try this angle. We're going to try that angle. And then always tried to respect them, even though they were my little babies. But give them the respect. Like I just always felt that just because they were my children didn't mean that I could walk all over them. And not that I was perfect, obviously, because you can ask them. I wasn't perfect, but they need respect. And children respond so well. Didn't matter how old they are when you respect them, because they're humans too. So yeah. Yeah,
I think that's a critical point. We've talked about something like this too, because fast forward a little bit, I want to stay in this part, but you're also a teacher too, so you had to learn the hard way how to respect students. I'm curious, like, in both of you guys' perspectives, in terms of like the new age of parenting right now, in terms of like allowing the kids to kind of, right, I know, because that's an interesting point. There's a balance in what you're talking about right now, right? Where you want to give them respect, but there's almost an overcompensation at times where you allow almost like an too much freedom to where they don't understand the importance of that freedom, right? And so they get to walk over the parents right now. I guess just as for both of you guys' perspectives, how do you balance that respect and the ability for the kid to kind of almost feel like they're an adult at times?
Do you want to go first, Albert, or do you want me to go first?
Yeah, I got two. So I have a phrase that I've learned. And by the way, Lydia, I've had to learn this as an adult after raising Albert. So I had to kind of relearn my parenting of what my values were based upon, he's a great kid, great man, right? But I had to learn, like, what could I have done better? And I know for me, there's a term I have, is like, too much kindness brings lack of accountability. And I think in this new world order, Albert, with parenting, I've seen parents are more concerned with having their kids have self-esteem, making feel good, as opposed to teaching kids to have self-respect. And the difference is, theme is they have to feel good all the time. It's about their feelings. Are they feeling right? Are they feeling this? Feelings aren't facts. Feelings go away. They're not true. They go up and down. They're based on emotions. But if you teach a kid how self-respect, make your bed, pick up after yourself, say thank you, have gratitude, that self-respect for themselves and how they dress up, what they brush their teeth, they wear nice clothes, how they view themselves is how they view the world. In this new age of parenting, parents are more concerned about making sure their kids feel good as opposed to having to be good. And there's a huge difference.
I agree. Well, hope I'm not going to get in trouble, but I didn't make my kids feel good. No. I mean, I raised them with the golden rule: treat others the way you want to be treated. And I didn't give them anything, especially them being young men or becoming young men. It's like, you got to work for what you got. And they all went to college on their own time. And at first they were like, damn it, Mom, all my cousins and all my, college mates, they get everything taken care of. And I was like, well, you know what? You got to find it yourself, because that's going to make you stronger. And so once they got older, they're more appreciative, because then now they can realize there's so much more internal strength, And I had a set of rules, and they needed to follow them. And if they ever disrespected me, that would never ever go over well. And whenever I did have rules, one of my sons in particular, he would always argue it. He would say, "Why do you say that, Mom? Where do you come up with that?" And that would make me go, "Oh, I don't know. Gee, where did I come up with that?" And then I'd go think about it, and then I would come back to him and I said, "This is why." And he would make me explain why I put this rule down. And if it made sense to him, he would go, "All right, Mom, I'll do it the way you want me to," because he saw that I thought about it and it made sense. And then it was, that was really, really great. But no, it was, and they had chores to do, they had work to do. And because I was a single mom, I was like, listen, guys, you can't drag your wagon. We got to work together, and you can't be lazy. You can't do this. You have to hold your own, because I have to hold my own, and we're going to do this together. So maybe I instilled in them that whole island idea as well. Again, not perfect, but they by no means, they're very masculine men. They're very different, the four, but they're all very masculine. I didn't raise them with the feel good. I raised them with the feel good too. With the idea, it's like what you said, Albert, was that, can you look at yourself in the mirror at the end of the day, honestly, look at the eyes and say, good job today.
Yeah.
I like what you did,
Yeah. I love what you said, because, Albert, as a parent, one of the things that you'll find is you have everybody else's opinion about how you should parent your kids. If you just have a rule of like, how do I want my kid? You're raising kids for the world. You're raising kids not to keep them. All these parents that want to keep their kids.
Right.
All you're doing is you only have a short period of time with them. Mm-hmm. Your idea as a parent is to prepare kids for the world, because the world is fucking ruthless. And what's happening is these parents are really enabling, and they're hurting they're crippling their kids, because now you're competing with someone like me or even Lydia, who there is no, we don't have soft spots in certain areas, because we had to earn what we had to get. And when you come from, and even your background, Albert, like, even though you did live in suburbia, your mom and I were super structured with you. And you got to experience that when you got on your own in college, of unstructured men that you knew. So there's this, I think it's super important what Lydia did as well, is like, men are logical. So she's teaching these young men how to use their logic to their favor, as opposed to if she had girls, she'd have to be a little bit emotional about that, but can still instill structure. But the whole point is there's this idea that I'll let my kids learn through school or through other means, as opposed to me, the parent. No, I need to teach my kids how to sustain, I would say, a hierarchy in the world. but I have to be able to do it on my own and not depend on anybody. And we have too many dependent baby boys and baby girls out there who are just going to fail because their parents are trying to be their friends as opposed to really teaching them how to succeed in the world.
Yeah. Don't you feel now, Albert, that you're friends with more your son now? You know,
Yeah.
I feel that really blessed now because now I call them up and I ask them their advice. You know, what do you think? You know, what do you think? You know, how you know, and what they say to me is like, wow, it's just amazing. You know,
100%.
because they have taken what I've learned and what they've learned with me, and then gone to the next level with them, and it's amazing.
Beautiful.
So, yeah.
You built some really good men. It looks like one of them's having a fight pretty soon, right? One of them started their boxing career a little early.
Right, yeah. Yeah, he's representing Mexico and California.
That's super fun. So I'm in that line of work too. You said to me that you really like working with young adults, like the youth, right? And watching them shine. I kind of want to fast forward a little bit too. And you were my Spanish teacher, right? And so you did that for a really long time. How did you transition from like motherhood, single mom, trying to make ends meet, trying to do whatever you can to nurture and love and build these young men, to Spanish teacher? How did that transition come about?
Well, I went to USC, and then I never finished my credential and got married and went down that rabbit hole. And so when I came back, I just approached USC again, and then finished up there, and then got my credential, and then went to work. Yeah. But
Was it hard?
teaching is what's that?
Go ahead, Albert. Go.
I'm sorry. I think teaching is very similar to being a parent. And that's how I taught you in a much smaller degree, but holding you accountable in your ways of your work. You know, I don't know if you remember, but you know, I was big on that. I didn't really care what grade you got, but you know, just the integrity of you learning something. You have to apply anything that you want to learn. And in my case, it was Spanish. So, you know, there were so many people that just cared about the grades. Like, well, that's great, but can you speak Spanish? Do you know how to read? Do you know how to write? Do you know how to communicate? That has nothing to do with the grade. If you do, then you will get a satisfying grade. So it just comes down to applying and doing something, actually doing the work. And that's how I went about teaching. And I remember, because there was a time where I taught dance as well, and where I only taught dance at Union Mine, different high school. And my sister would come and my other siblings, and they'd go, "Geez, man, you're just yelling at the kids that are on stage, just like they're your boys." And I'm like, "Well, sorry, yeah, you know, like so." Yeah, to me, it was very similar.
Did that make the transition a little easier? I mean, because I can imagine, this is just me, I've never been a single mom before, but a single mom with boys and with your background, you know, I guess to Albert's question, when you transitioned into school teaching, is that something that you fell into, or is that something you pursued because you wanted to be a teacher?
I always wanted to be a teacher, yeah, since I was young, yeah. And I knew I would be good at it, and I knew I could, because to me, teaching was a subject, right, or something like that, but more importantly was an integrity that you try to bestow upon your student and pull it out of them. Yeah. You know, not all students respond, but a lot of them do. Yeah. And so I just knew I could do it. I really think that teaching is a gift. It's an art form, and not everybody has it. You can be really a professional and really great at whatever you do, but it's another thing to impart that knowledge. Yeah. And not only the knowledge, but the inspiration to want to, oh, that's exciting. I love the way you teach that. I want to do that. I want to learn that. I want to be like that. You know, it's another thing to inspire. So,
one more thing on that. One more thing. So on that, Lydia, as you know, you transitioned from teacher to now author and writer. In this phase of your life, what are some of the challenges you're facing in this phase of your life? And did you always want to be a writer and an author?
No, I never wanted to be. I never thought I would wanted to be a writer or an author, honestly. But when I started playing with writing, and writing is a very solitary process, and it is really beautiful and very moving. And I love it when I'm in that flow. And it is something I didn't know I could do. And so I think I would want to write some more. I have some more ideas for other books. But yeah, I didn't really know I wanted to do that. But now it's the whole writing a book and publishing it, that whole process up until processing it is kind of easy,
Yep.
you know?
Yep.
And then now that it's published and now that to get it out there, that's a totally different animal, which, you know, I'm not good at.
Yeah.
I have to learn marketing and, you know, all these, you know, things that more business stuff that's not my forte. I'm a nurturer by nature. I'm not a, you know, business person by nature. So yeah, it's really new. So I'm just starting that, but it's it's difficult because I am putting myself in a place that I've never been.
And you have so many hats to wear too. You have to market yourself everywhere you go too. You don't realize it. Everyone's watching, and it's a little bit more vulnerable too, because now it's not really, it's in your control to market it, but like you were saying before about how you felt just releasing it and the after effects of that. Now it's like out of your control in that regard. So you have to just let go and just however it processes, it's up to the world, right?
Right.
Yeah. What do you think is now that you've had all this out in the air, what did you learn about like yourself that you had to like kind of internally process now? Like, how do you go about like now that it's kind of like you I don't want to say like aired out all your dirty laundry per se, but more of like you aired out this spot that you were uncomfortable with sharing with the world at one point in time. How have your relationships been with your family, your friends, people? Like, what's kind of the stuff that you've noticed with the personal relationships that you're dealing with now?
Well, like you said, yes, I struggled with that, and you know, putting that story out there, all the dirty laundry for people to see and judge and whatever. But to my surprise, I have been met with mostly like 90% so far compassion, you know, and understanding. And but you know what was even better than that? I mean, not that I'm not appreciative of people being kind and you know, and just gracious to my story, but was what for me it was when I let it go and let it go into the world. It was like I'm okay with it. You know, judge me the way you want to judge me. Yeah, it's going to hurt me, especially if it's harsh. But what am I going to do? This is who I am. This is where I've been. This is what happened. And yeah, it's not so pretty. But if you're going to not love me because of that, well, then you never would have loved me anyway, you know? And I'm not just saying, I'm not talking romantic. I'm just talking about anybody who knows me, you know? And I hope, hopefully when they know me, they don't, and they've said that, they can't imagine that that's what I went through because that's not what I exude now. You know, I don't exude that I came from such a hell. And I'm happy for that. I'm really glad for that. And a lot of it was when releasing this book, it was just like so freeing. And it was like actually stepping into the place and the person and the energy of where I'm supposed to be. And I love that. It's like, oh, this is me. And it brings me back to when I was a little girl. Like, this was me when I was a little girl before all this, you know, you start hitting puberty and crap hits everywhere. And, you know, you go out in the world and fall and go in deep holes and all that kind of stuff. That, you know, that hope, that desire, that love, that, you know, optimism. And so for that, to go through all of that, to go through hell and all that stuff, I'm so grateful, and I wouldn't change anything. However, if you would have told me before I went to this that I was going to go through that, I would have shot myself. Yeah. So there was no way in hell that I was going to go through that. I was like, hell no. But I'm glad I didn't know, because I would have killed myself and I wouldn't have been able to come to the other side. But so for everything, I am very grateful because it has brought me back to the real essence, at the beginning of the real essence of who I am.
So when you watch this video back, Lydia, because we're going to give you a copy of it, I want you to break down this segment that you just went through. What we just all experienced is the true passion that Lydia has. Like, you just opened up like nothing. It was really beautiful. Like, I saw, like you right now, you're smiling, you're glowing. The reason why I think that's a great question Albert asked you is because I know for me, when I wrote my book last year, I had no idea the byproduct that was going to happen. And a lot of things you said, I've talked to him about, is releasing these stories that I had in my book were my stories that I played over and over 1,000,000 times. It just haunted me. But when I put it on paper, it no longer existed, because now they're your stories, because there's no more shame, there's no more guilt, there's no more hiding. I think for me, the book was able to release all this for me. And then on top of that, the stories that I have that I'm really glad you're talking about is I get to talk to people who get to read my story. Because I had a lot of self-sabotage. I had a huge imposter syndrome the week I was published, because I was like, who the fuck is going to read my book? No one's going to relate to it. No one's even going to care. And why am I writing this? I went through this huge imposter syndrome. And now, I had a call today with a guy that he literally broke down and said, you don't know how much your book impacted me.
Wow.
He's like, Albert, I've never read a book like that. And Lydia, I'm not an author, writer, and speaker, but I am an author, writer, and speaker, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You read my book, there's grammatical errors all over the place. I don't care. I wrote a damn book because it was the truth that I gave. But this is a grown-ass 42-year-old man who literally was he was literally like, Albert, thank you for writing your book. And I just said, I got emotional because I didn't expect that. You're reading my book and it impacted you. So I'm really glad that you shared this to the world, because you don't know who is going to pick it up and just say, oh my God, I relate to her. There is someone else that went through that shit, and hers was worse than mine, or mine was worse than hers, or whatever. But that's the beauty of sharing, because you do get free. So I just want to really make sure that I gave that gift to you, that when you play this back, you opened up and you just were this flower. And that's the beauty of the gift that you have, is you're sharing this story because it's your story. It's not only your truth, but the truth. And you get to do it in a way where you can impact people's lives because you're a survivor. And you have these principles and rules you live by, and they worked for you. So just want to really thank you and honor you for a second.
Oh, well, thank you, Albert. That's really sweet. I appreciate that. I appreciate that a lot. Thank you.
I'm just going to echo him. You just don't know who you're going to reach. I think that's the biggest thing that I learned. I mean, I didn't expect to ever talk to you past high school. So it's you have no idea what's going to happen, and it just comes up at your doorstep, Just to kind of side pivot a little bit, being a son, I was super curious. I was just thinking about the way that you're talking about this, the way that you've shared your vulnerabilities in general. How have you been able to share that to your sons and have them express themselves as young men in this new world?
Can you ask that again? I'm not sure I'm following you.
So your young men they've some of them are, they're all pretty much either in college or graduating, right? They're all early mid-20s. How have you allowed them to be vulnerable with who they want to be, express themselves, and is this something that you talk about with them regularly or semi-regularly so they can express themselves as men that they want to be?
Yes, regularly, and it's gotten better with the more time with it, because as a parent also, I was, how, you want them to be a certain way, and then it just realizing that, no, I want more than that. I want you to find your way. I want you because nothing is so beautiful than to somebody that actually steps into who they are, because there's just so much force behind that, and there's so much peace and so much love. And so I know that, and so I encourage my boys to find it. Whatever you want to do, go do it. But know that you got to do it. I can't do things for you, and I'm not going to do things for you, and you're going to fall sometimes, and it's not going to be great, and I'm going to try to help you to get out of it and do all those things, but you're going to have to do it. But the thing is, don't give up and find that. Don't lose that drive, don't lose that desire to find what you want to do, and because there's nothing more beautiful and nothing more powerful. And that's true for everyone. And so it's like I keep, like, even when teaching, like, gosh, don't listen to your parents. Go do what you want to do. You know, what is it that you want to do? Because your parents aren't living your life. You are.
Yeah.
So, you know, do you have the guts to do that? Yeah. And it takes gut. It takes heart. It takes a lot of heart to go, no, you know, all my family says this, society says this is the next step that I'm supposed to do, but I don't want to do that. Well, then, you know, you're probably going to fall because it's a path less traveled, and you're going to probably fall down the mountain a little bit, but get back up and go in there, but keep going. Don't give up, because it's waiting and just wanting for you to find yourself. Your heart keeps pulling you, you know, it pulls you.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we have this conversation a lot, but also with in the context of integrity of who they are, and remember to be the man that you could look at in the mirror. And I say man because all I had was sons. You know, who, you know, can you look at that person in the mirror? Whatever you've done, you know, you don't have to tell me, because that's not my business. But you know, who are you? Are you happy with that person? You know, are you proud of that? So
yeah, good.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you for sharing. That's just I'm gonna say this out loud, okay? I didn't grow up with a mom, and I'm really how should I say this without feeling so trite? I wish I would have had you as a mom.
Aw,
No,
thank you.
I'm being real. I haven't met many women like you who are so like you live in integrity, and to have that and to teach your boys, young men, that it's priceless. There's so many things learning from you. Fuck, like that is incredible. It's really no. I'm being really real with you. I just love, and you remind me of Albert's mom. Albert's mom is an amazing woman. Like she loves her kids, but she was not easy. She was a hard ass mom for us living in suburbia. We acted poor sometimes. We're like, no, you need to do this. You need to contribute. When they were 5, 6, 7 years old, they were scrubbing the fucking floors. They were doing stuff, you know. Yeah. So I just felt I needed to tell you that, because it's really amazing. And yeah, I'm just really thankful that we're having this call with you.
Well, thank you, Albert. You know, I'm honored that you would say such words. Thank you.
It takes a lot to have the courage to keep showing up, you know, especially for young boys. We can be rambunctious, we can be all over the place, but we need structure, right? And especially as a single mom, that's incredible, right?
Here it is. I have to say this. You know, I raised boys. I have nothing but boys, and I'm a woman, but I just love masculine energy. And it's so beautiful, and unfortunately nowadays it gets the short end of the stick. And it is so sad, because when, again, you find a real masculine man who has found his place in himself, in his masculine physical body, you know, and can accept that and then develop it in such a way that he wants to be in the masculine energy. Oh God, it's so beautiful. It is just amazing. And I have 4 different boys, and they're different. Some of them have more feminine traits than others, but they're still very masculine, you know. And I have masculine traits too, but I'm feminine. But and I just say that raise boys of rambunctious energy, that we're this and that. Please don't say that. You gentlemen, boys, just like young ladies and women, are beautiful, and it just kind of hurts me that anybody would say anything bad about that, because it's just feminine and masculine energy. They're so beautiful, different, you know, very, very different, but they're so beautiful. So I just wanted to say that, because I believe that with all my heart. I feel it. I mean, I'm very blessed to have 4 boys.
We have about, I'm say 5, 6, 7, 8 minutes left. Is there anything you want to ask Albert and I about our relationship, or, you know, anything comes to mind? We kind of ask that question at the end to see if anything comes up with you. Any curious questions you have for us?
Yeah, what do you think about being a man right now, with all these, you know, things happening right now where people are trying to define themselves? There's, you know, male, female, the different pronouns and stuff. How do you, as a dad, how do you, as a young man, how's that? Because I know they're different. You have a different, you know, Albert Jr., you're living it differently, and Albert Sr. So yeah, what do you tell me about that?
Go ahead, bro.
Yeah, this I've had so many conversations about this. I mean, so to give context for anyone listening in the future, this is election night too, 2024. So yeah, it's interesting right now. I think there's a tide shifting right now. I think as a man, you need to understand what you want and figure out what that purpose is. I think it's so much has to do with self-awareness, and that's where your underlying talking about is like male, female, doesn't matter. As a man, you need to figure out as soon as possible what's most important to you and live in integrity. That's what you've been preaching, right? And so right now it's a little confusing. I think it's confusing if you don't know what you want. And so I think just pick a direction and just play trial and error. And then once you get that, you get to learn what you're good at, what you're not good at, and do your best to just fail as much as possible. And then you're going to learn as quickly as possible as a young man. If you're in your late stages as an adult, I think just stick to what you want to learn. This is where me and my dad, I think, differ a little bit, where I'm talking about strengths. I think you need to double down on your strengths as much as possible and fine tune the weaknesses. And then you're going to learn so much. I think also, granted, I have the ability of more time, you know, being here, so I can say that a little bit more freely. But yeah, just knowing what you want and going after it as quickly as possible. And if you need to take some time for yourself, do it, but just be as self-aware as possible. And I think that's what I've done, is figuring out what I want most.
Yeah, interesting question, Lydia. So I've actually gotten more masculine as I've gotten older. Let me tell you what that means is I didn't even know what masculinity was till probably 5 years ago. I had zero clue. That there was a term. You know, I grew up in a very, very volatile environment, and I became volatile. I was the opposite of masculine. I was an emotional liability. And call it femininity if you want. I was an emotional liability. I thought I needed to press more emotion, not suppress my emotion. That was a big difference. And I didn't realize recently, till probably 2 years ago, that women really need 2 things. They need safety and security from their man, and they need leadership. I didn't provide any of that. So I had to learn this. I had to learn to define what do I need, who do I need to become for myself first, and then how am I going to lead my family? Granted, my family, they're adults. So I had to recreate this whole new process. So for me, it's very black and white for me. Like I struggle with Albert's generation, or even some guys that are my age that don't understand their roles. And this is where Albert said, you know, we differ in definition of strengths and weaknesses. I think we're very similar. I just think my son hasn't figured out that weakness is your strength. For example, if you're someone who is super emotional, that's a weakness. You have to focus on your weakness, because when you learn how to have restraint in your emotion, that's strength. The strength is in the restraint. That is what I had to learn, is to restrain all of these pleasures in life that I have, to not do them. That's more strength. That's what I talk about weaknesses. I talk about focus on the weaknesses that are making you make decisions based upon impulses or compulsions, as opposed to, is this going to make me a better man, or is this going to make me a weaker man? And so for me, I had to really dial in all these imperfections that I had to create this person I needed to become. So now that I have this solid person that I could respect, now I can give him to the world. And that's what I did. That's what I'm doing daily. And so to answer your question, I think there's a huge problem, because the issue isn't that society's telling men to be masculine. The issue is that masculinity is not being defined at really what it is. It's the safest, most protective, most dutiful, most responsible space that a man can be. There's so much safety and security in masculinity, but it's being taught that it's toxic, because when a man shows his emotion, which is anger, anger is a way for us to show our emotion, just like women use crying. But anger is used as a way, as a default of toxicity, as opposed to, this is how men express themselves, through anger, just like women use crying. So I just think that our definitions are flawed, and they're being persecuted because we have so many emotional weak people, because we're focusing on their feelings and their self-esteem, going back to my original premise, and not focusing on how can I self-respect myself and be a better human being.
Yeah. A character. Yeah. Yeah.
It's great.
Wow. Yeah. Well, I listened to you guys talk last week, and I was great. It was just so beautiful to hear you guys talk amongst yourselves, as father and son, and talk about love and your perspectives on it, and it just was very instructive, very informative, and really beautiful. And I'm so honored to be here and to be amongst you guys, and what you're doing is great, and keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I'm appreciative of you joining us. I want to ask you one last question before we sign off. What are you most proud of yourself for?
That's a hard one, because that's one thing I've always struggled with, to praise my own self, but I think that I'm most proud of the fact that I am here, that I have written that book, and I'm here to talk about it, and just proof that no matter how deep you fall, no matter how low you go, there's always a way back out. So, yeah.
So what did you get out of this, Lydia? What did you learn about yourself on this episode with us?
I think, I don't know if I learned, but it was reinforced that this is what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a different form of teaching.
It really is.
So, yeah, maybe it's the next step. So the next place I go. So, yeah. And you don't know how full my heart is just to be here with you guys. And I so much appreciate it. And I'm so honored. And thank you.
Thank you.
What about you, bud?
I'm just thinking of I just go back to the first couple conversations we had, where it was just felt very natural. You have this pure energy about yourself where you just want to radiate and shine, and you just are very authentic. I'm gonna toot our own horn, and I did it in our first conversation. The way that you were interacting with other people, it seemed like you wanted to like showcase more, but didn't know how. And I think in our conversations that we've had, it's like you weren't, we were still trying to get to know each other, and then, you know, a little bit more, and then now you're just like blossoming, you know, and like you want to just share it out. So I'm excited to see where that leads down the line, because that was something you addressed before our call, was how do I learn how to market myself? How do I learn how to share my story? And I think that's what I got from you, is how we can share that, and how I learned from you today is like, you can be authentic, you can be in integrity of what you want and share your story at the same time. And it was really cool to witness in real time.
Yeah, we've been doing this for, you know, going on 11 months now, and every week is not only different but special. And you know, I'm going to give you a lot of credit, Lydia. Like from our call that we had, there was a lot of restriction. There was a lot of, you know, I think because unfamiliarity, but I love the way that you opened up to us. So thank you. Thank you. There's a gift there for all of us to kind of learn from. And a lot of it has to do with your comfort level, but also just sharing. And so what I learned out of this is there's some great stories out there. Like there's some amazing people that we're meeting, and you're one of them. And I just got a whole new perspective on motherhood, by the way. Like I knew there was some other women like my son's mom out there, and there's some other women that I know, but there's not a lot of you. And I've noticed that I'm meeting some wonderful women and mothers who have really done a tremendous job of not just surviving but thriving. Anybody could survive, but you're fucking thriving. I think it's amazing. So keep shining and keep sharing, and whatever I can do support you, let me know. Like I wrote a book, and there's some things that I'm doing. If you need support on that, let me know. I got some strategies that I'm working on, but you know, we'll put your book in the link. It's called The Hell With You, correct?
To hell with you, yes.
And we'll put it in the link, and feel free to, anybody out there, reach out to us. You know, we're here every Tuesday, and this is episode 40, so we're gonna have episode 41 coming up. And we just, you know, we're just thrilled that everybody that's on here follows us, and we're just two men that just wanna give and wanna share our story and bring tremendous stories like Lydia on here, because we don't know who it's gonna touch. We don't know who's going to get just one nugget to where, man, like maybe I could do something like that, or we don't know who we're gonna inspire. And sometimes inspiration is just this little spark that we need, but not going anywhere. We have a lot to give and a lot to share. So we just want to thank everybody for joining us tonight, and we'll see you next week on Tuesday at 6:30. We got some tremendous guests coming next couple of weeks, but on behalf of my son and myself and Lydia, we want to thank you for being on our show tonight, and we'll wish you all a good night.